It's often said that tearing things down is simpler than building them up. Those who choose destruction often expose their vulnerabilities. Right now, we see certain nations behaving like global terrorists, leaving a legacy marked by ruin and instability. Who are these agents of destruction? They are the children of the wicked. And for centuries, we have seen a repeated pattern of the turmoil and suffering they cause. They exhibit a profound thirst for violence, often shifting blame onto others, labeling them as savages while hiding their own actions. They say they want peace, but their actions tell a different story. Let's look at some examples of those who are the destroyers of peace.
Happened a week or so ago when all of these Axis parties, the North Korean leader, the President Putin, even the Prime Minister of India, who's not necessarily an enemy in that category, but they all got together in China. And they wanted to prove that what the president had been trying to do in Alaska, that is put a wedge between Russia and China, was not going to happen, that access is still tight. Is it as tight as she wanted to portray it?
Well, the relationship between China and Russia is as tight as ever. And although it is, I guess, theoretically possible for the United States to separate China and Russia, it is almost impossible, considering that Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping see the world in the same terms and they identify the same adversary and enemy, which is us.
So you have two other superpowers who now see the United States as the enemy. I wonder why.
And we are seeing increased Chinese support for the war effort in Ukraine, including providing soldiers. The United States needs to acknowledge this and actually impose costs on China and others for supporting the Russian war effort. And until we do that, this war is going to continue indefinitely.
I want to bring it closer to home. China is now warning the United States against, quote, bullying Venezuela. China has pledged support for Venezuela after President Trump carried out military strikes on the ships. We all saw the video. He says these ships were carrying drugs.
So Trump says a lot of drugs are coming out of Venezuela, and they are sending us their gang members, their drug dealers, and drugs. Now, according to several reports from experts in crime, the South American country plays a minor role in trafficking drugs that reach the U.S. This article says the reality is that while Maduro's government is an authoritarian, corrupt regime, drug trafficking from Venezuela is relatively minor compared to other countries in the region, such as Colombia, Ecuador, Guatemala, and Mexico. So are we just going to overlook the fact that the CIA helped to push drugs in our community? This article from Foreign Policy in Focus says in August of 1996, the San Jose Mercury News initiated an extended series of articles linking the CIA's Contra Army to the crack cocaine epidemic in Los Angeles. While much of the CIA Contra drug story had been revealed years ago in the press and in congressional hearings, the Mercury News series added a crucial missing link. It followed the cocaine trail to Ross and Black LA gangs who became street-level distributors of crack, a cheap and powerful form of cocaine. The CIA's drug network, wrote Webb, opened the first pipeline between Colombia's cocaine cartels and the black neighborhoods of Los Angeles, a city now known as the crack capital of the world. Black gangs used their profits to buy automatic weapons, sometimes from one of the CIA-linked drug dealers. Imagine that. And later, the government introduced the War on Drugs legislation to imprison the same people they helped to push the drugs to. We're talking about the destroyers of peace.
The UK led the way on Sunday, recognizing a Palestinian state, followed by Canada, Australia, and Portugal.
In the face of the growing horror in the Middle East, we are acting to keep alive the possibility of peace and a two-state solution. That means a safe and secure Israel alongside a viable Palestinian state.
Unilateral recognition of a Palestinian state and the situation in Gaza are expected to dominate this week's UN General Assembly. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says there will not be a Palestinian state in the West Bank.
At the UN, I will present the truth. This is Israel's truth, but it is the objective truth in our righteous struggle against the forces of evil.
He said they are in a righteous struggle against the forces of evil.
And our vision for real peace, peace from strength.
Netanyahu expert Eugene Kontorovich says supporters can say what they want, but a Palestinian state doesn't exist.
They have complete independence, autonomy. Israel's not controlling their lives. So what would a state give them that they don't have now?
I thank the representative of Egypt for the statement. The representative of Pakistan has asked for the floor to make a further statement. I give them the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm obliged to take the floor to respond to some comments. The representative of Israel perhaps did not listen attentively to all council members and other speakers in today's debate. And in our view, it is unacceptable, indeed ludicrous, for an aggressor, an occupier, a serial violator of UN Charter and international law, that is Israel, to abuse this chamber and disrespect the sanctity of this council. And this is not the first time. And by pointing fingers on others, baseless assertions primarily aimed at masking its own illegal actions and violations of international law. President, but that's not at all surprising. It is an occupier that does not listen to anyone, that does not pay heed to any advice, even from its friends, if there are any left, that refutes, and not just refutes, it threatens members of the international community, international media, international human rights and humanitarian organizations, doesn't listen to the ICJ or the ICC, and threatens the UN and its senior officials. And it does that with impunity, shielded by its apologists who time and again acquiesce in its illegal actions and defiance of the international community. And like all occupiers, despite being the aggressor, it feigns and plays the victim. But today it is totally exposed. We cannot accept insinuations from an irresponsible rogue state that is, in fact, the perpetrator of worst kind of state terrorism that we are witnessing in Gaza, and in fact in the occupied Palestinian territories for decades. And we reject any false analogy, as has also been done by Qatar.
Those were some very strong words, but will they be impactful enough to make a difference? I think we all know the answer to that, but listen to this next clip from MSNBC.
Today, a dramatic display of Israel's isolation as it presses on with its war in Gaza.
Please, order in the hall. Please, order in the hall.
There you saw all those people, officials, diplomats in the UN General Assembly Hall walking out as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu defended Israel's right to, quote, finish the job against Hamas amid growing accusations of genocide. He also denounced the push to create a Palestinian state. And here's the reception that Netanyahu is getting in Midtown Manhattan, right outside of our studios. Massive crowds of pro-Palestinian protesters, blocks and blocks of them marching from Times Square to the United Nations.
No.
I want to bring in Rick Stengel, former Undersecretary of State for Public Diplomacy and Public Affairs and MSNBC political analyst. Netanyahu had a message to deliver, but do you think he got the one being sent to him when all those folks walked out?
Yes, I think that was unmistakable. Chris, what folks have to realize is that 80% of the countries in the UN, more than 150 nations, support a Palestinian state. The UN High Commissioner for Refugees has declared what Israel is doing in Gaza a genocide. The UN Commission of Inquiry in the Middle East has declared it a genocide. So you have almost all of these nation states in the UN that support the UN, that supported a Palestinian state, that are against what Israel is doing in Gaza. So this is exactly what happens.
Well, when you watch, and we looked out of our windows of our offices and we saw all those people marching. And as I said, it was block after block after block. Their question would be, if it's 80%, why isn't anyone able to do anything about it?
Well, that's a long time question about the UN. The Security Council is unable to actually do things and make resolutions. They have no way.
The Security Council represents powerful countries.
Yes.
Countries arguably more powerful and certainly more economically powerful than Israel.
Yeah. Well, the only country really that can move the needle on it is the United States, in part because of the bond between Israel and the United States and the fact that U.S. support for Israel is the thing that keeps Netanyahu able to go to the UN.
So basically, the other nations can put the Rev 29ers on blast and walk out all they want. But unless America puts an end to it, things will not change. Look at this article from the United Nations. On the 18th of September, the United States once again vetoed a UN resolution demanding an immediate, unconditional, and permanent ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. Now, in case you didn't know, the U.S. is one of 5 permanent council members with the right to veto. The other 4 permanent members are China, France, Russia, and the United Kingdom. Who are we talking about here? The same nations benefiting the most after World War II. If you haven't seen the videos called The True Intent of World War II and what they didn't tell us about how Israel became a state, I really encourage you to watch those videos. It will explain some of the things we see happening right now. The link will be in the description for those who have not seen them. But this article says when Nazi Germany invaded Poland in September 1939, there were a number of countries who stood in opposition to this expansionist pursuit of power. These countries together formed what is called the Allies of World War II. They were supposed to be allies, but now we see them turning on each other over what? Resources. So it says the big three, as defined by Franklin D. Roosevelt in 1942, comprised of Great Britain, the United States, and the Soviet Union, and then a fourth major power towards the end of the war was China. A series of other countries contributed to the Allied war effort, including one of the biggest players at the start of the war, France. So now we see the Allies, who were so instrumental in ending World War II, involved in world conflict. A number of years ago, China actually blamed the United States for all of it and called the United States destroyers of world peace. But of course, we know that America and its leaders see themselves as the promoters of peace.
The president is a very patient man. He's very committed to peace, but his patience is not infinite. So I'm here to say to the Security Council, the United States remains as committed as it has ever been to a peaceful resolution to this dangerous conflict.
So Rubio wants the world to believe that President Trump is a peaceful man. The author of this article is seeing things a bit differently. He says Donald Trump is not a peace president. Trump struggles to articulate any foreign policy view with much coherence and has a fragile ego that makes world conflicts all about him. The author says Trump continues to take credit for solving 6 or 7 wars, although no one has any clue what he's talking about. So we keep hearing the same bad actors talking about peace, but they have been responsible for the conflict over centuries. This article from Military History Now is talking about Europe at war, from Achilles to Putin, how conflict shaped the history of a continent. The author is quoted as saying war has had a profound impact on the development of Europe's states and relations among them over time. The author says no one put it more succinctly than historian Charles Tilly. This is what Tilly said: war made the state, and the state made war. One might add that war made the nation, and the nation made war. So we're talking about a nation of warmongers. It goes on to say, indeed, from the 15th century, European states began conquering and colonizing peoples beyond the continent to the ends of the earth. Among many forces, an edge in guns, germs, and steel decisively empowered them to do that. By 1914, Europeans had colonized all of South and North America, Australia, and Oceanica, and nearly all of Africa and Asia, although the American colonies had won their independence. As European states competed and at times fought to extend or retain their overseas empires, they at once became more nationalistic and European, confronting, conquering, and colonizing alien cultures and races reinforced European identity. They saw their religion, humanism, art, literature, and entire way of life as superior to those of barbarian peoples. They justified their imperialism as bringing Christianity and enlightenment to their subjects. Here's the thing. Nations have always been at war with each other, but certain nations stand out as warmongers. They have a lust for war and destruction, and there's no denying that. This article from World History is talking about the origins of the Germanic peoples, also called Teutonic, Suebian, or Gothic in older literature. They are an ethno-linguistic Indo-European group of Northern European origin. They are identified by their use of Germanic languages, which diversified out of Proto-Germanic during the pre-Roman Iron Age. The term Germanic originated in classical times when groups of tribes living in Lower, Upper, and Greater Germania were referred to using this label by Roman scribes. These tribes generally lived to the north and east of the Gauls. They were chronicled by Rome's historians as having had a critical impact on the course of European history during the Roman-Germanic Wars, particularly at the historic Battle of the Teutoburg Forest, where the vanquishment of 3 Roman legions at the hands of Germanic tribal warriors precipitated the Roman Empire's strategic withdrawal from Magna Germania. It says, war and conquest followed as the Germanic people migrated, bringing them into direct conflict with the Celts, who were forced to either Germanize or migrate elsewhere as a result. Let me say that again. War and conquest followed them as they migrated and colonized. Continuing, it says, Germanic peoples were fierce in battle, creating a strong military. Their love of battle was linked to their religious practices and 2 of their most important gods, Woden and his son Thor, both believed to be gods of war. Don't miss that. The Germanic idea of warfare was quite different from the pitched battles fought by Rome and Greece, and the Germanic tribes focused on raids to capture resources and secure prestige. Warriors were strong in battle and had great fighting abilities, making the tribes almost unbeatable. Men began battle training at a young age and were given a shield and a spear upon manhood, illustrating the importance of combat in Germanic life. The loss of the shield or spear meant a loss of honor. The Germanic warrior's intense devotion to his tribe and his chieftain led to many important military victories. I'll drop down. It says military chieftains relied upon retinues. So a retinue would be the people who travel with an important person to help them. So it says a chieftain's retinue might include, but was not limited to, close relatives. The followers depended on the retinue for military and other services, and in return provided for the retinue's needs and divided with them the spoils of battle. This relationship between a chieftain and his followers became the basis for the more complicated feudal system that developed in medieval Europe. The feudal system dominated medieval Europe. They were always at war with each other until they came together under the banner of Christianity, and then they became colonizers. They basically whited out certain tribes and forced others to assimilate. So there's a lot of admixture because of colonization. But some are definitely the seed of the serpent, and they demonstrate it by their actions. For those of us who love the Father, and you're doing everything you can to submit to his ways, please understand that there are tares among us. They are bent on destruction because it's in their nature. This passage from Revelation 6:3-4 describes the opening of the second seal, where a red horse appears and its rider is given the power to take peace from the earth so that people should kill one another, and there was given to him a great sword. So the children of darkness are already aligned with this type of behavior. They are destroyers of peace. And they will offer a false sense of peace in the last days, but it will not last. It cannot last because it is not of the Most High. This passage in Isaiah 33 will help us to recognize these destroyers of peace. It's talking about the destroyer. It says, "Woe to you who plunder, though you have not been plundered, and you who deal treacherously, though they have not dealt treacherously with you. When you cease plundering, you will be plundered. When you make an end of dealing treacherously, they will deal treacherously with you." So they steal, they kill, and they destroy. And this is certainly a verse that colonizing nations should take heed to and know that their day of reckoning is certainly at hand. We can certainly see how they plundered and dealt treacherously with our people. We still have the scars. But was the time of Jacob's trouble foretold? Yes. The Most High always gave our ancestors a warning. Sadly, we didn't listen. But a curse will not land without a cause. Listen to this prophecy that was given to Jeremiah in Jeremiah 22:6-7 about things that would happen to the house of the king of Judah. It says, "You are Gilead to me, the head of Lebanon, yet I surely will make you a wilderness, cities which are not inhabited. I will prepare destroyers against you, everyone with his weapons. They shall cut down your choice cedars and cast them into the fire." I hope you caught that. This says that the Most High prepared the destroyers and said what the destroyers would do: destroy things. And now that we know how they behave, this passage in 1 Thessalonians 5:3 is warning us about what they will say. They will proclaim that they brought about peace. But this says when they say peace and safety, sudden destruction will come upon them, and it will be like labor pains upon a pregnant woman. So we're talking about a time of great chaos and unrest. Those of us who belong to the Most High should not get our hopes up regarding the deceptive claims of peace that will be fostered by the ruling powers. Because as this passage in Isaiah 48:22 says, "There is no peace unto the wicked." This is why they cannot extend peace. We can only have true peace when we are submitted to the ways of Abba Yah. We're going to wrap up with this passage from Isaiah 2:1-4. It's telling us that this is an end time prophecy. It says, "In the latter days, the mountain of the Most High's house will be established on the top of the mountains and will be exalted above the hills. Nations are going to flow to it, and many people will come saying, 'Come and let us go up to the mountain of the Most High.'" So there won't be any confusion about where the land is. Those who remain will know, and they will know who we are. It says they will be seeking Abba Yah. They will have a desire to come and worship him, learn of his ways, and walk in his paths. It says, "For out of Zion shall go forth the law and the word of the Most High from Jerusalem. He will judge between the nations and rebuke many people. They will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither will they learn war any more." How many of you are looking forward to that day? I know that I am. We're going to continue the discussion about the destroyers of peace, and we're going to talk about the foreign aggressors and occupiers in our land. It was already prophesied that the Gentiles would be in our land in the last days, and we know that they will also be rooted out. If this message has been a blessing to you, please hit the like and share it. You're also welcome to subscribe if you have not already done so. We normally upload messages on Sunday mornings at 8:30 a.m. Yah willing. Join me next time.